the pastor, and there was conflict between the elders, and eventually the church just kind of started breaking apart. Well, the guy that was a pastor, it kind of, all the conflicts in the church just kind of, he really absorbed it personally, and his personal life just disintegrated. He got divorced from his wife, and then several months after that, he committed suicide. And so now there's no church anymore. There's no Somali church. I think there's a handful of people that meet, but this was something that was new. In the history of the nations, God was doing something among this people group, and divisions within the church just helped tear it down. And so I think the point is that a lot of times, even in the churches, we have this mindset of if this is what's right for me, or this is what I believe, and I'm in disagreement with my pastor, or I'm in disagreement with somebody else in my church, then we just need to split. So I can do my thing, and they can do their thing. And so it's very much about what I believe and what's best for me and what I think. Now, does anybody have an idea? Now, hold on. Does anybody have an idea how many denominations there are in the world? Denominations. How many? Okay, are you ready for this one? Okay, this is denominations, not churches. Okay, so here it is. Oh, I gotta get my pen over here. Okay. 33000. 33,000 denominations. Okay, all over the world.
And
Yeah.
then aren't they like?
Oh, now it's probably more.
Is there like there's a denomination and then it has one that comes from here?
Exactly. Yeah. If you follow, like a lot of times, you'll find that when you follow the history of your church, it's probably the series of a group of splits that have happened throughout history. And so the point is that generally speaking, we as Christians don't handle disagreements very well, and that when we disagree with other people in our church, rather than saying, for the good of my congregation, for the good of my church, I'm just going to close my mouth and wait on the Lord, we feel like we need to speak out. We need to talk about this. We need to get a group behind us, even if it divides the church, even if it destroys the church. But we feel like our convictions are more important than what is the good of the body. And that, I think, is the biggest tragedy in our church, that we're not committed to the idea of unity. We're not committed to the idea of sticking together, whatever the cost, And it's kind of got to be like what your marriage commitment is. It's like, when you get married to somebody, you say, whatever happens, we've got to stick together because we've made this commitment to each other. And we've got to work through our problems. We don't have the option of deciding if we're going to work through our problems or not. We have to work through our problems because we have to stay together. That also has to be the attitude in the church. That the Lord has made us this community. The Lord has made us into this family. And we can't just choose if we want to be part of this family or not. We have to understand that if God has placed us in a spiritual family, I'm bound to those people. I'm committed to those people. I'm connected to them. I can't just, unless the Lord specifically releases me, I have an obligation and a sense of responsibility, and that means I have to work through problems with people, even when I disagree, and maybe decide that even if I disagree with somebody, I can still worship with them. I can still pray with them. I can still serve the Lord with them, even though we don't agree on everything. And see, I think that's a thing that's lacking in a lot of our churches, and that's why we just split and split and split and split. Okay, were you going to say something, Chris?
Well, yeah, back to the Somali.
Oh, yeah.
The Somali church. One of the teachers here, he was intimately connected with the pastor, was good friends with him, and so he knew exactly what happened, and it was like because 2 or 3 other churches wanted to say, we started a Somali church, and they started funding some of the Somali church members to start their own church, and they weren't equipped as like leaders, and it just caused like division within that group of like there's maybe 20 or 30 believers, and so it was actually because of American individualistic churches wanting
to get credit.
to get
for what's
credit
going
for
on.
the ministry
Yeah.
that caused that church to die.
And see, and the thing is that the opposite of the individualism is that I don't always make decisions on the basis of what's best for me. That I have to start asking myself the question, what group do I belong to? What family do I belong to? What community do I belong to? What church do I belong to? And that sometimes I need to make decisions based on not what is necessarily about me and for me, but what is best for this group that I'm part of. And see, as Americans, we just don't think that way, and that's the problem. You know, now there's opposite extremes. You know, like in India, you don't get to pick who you're going to marry. You know, kids in India don't grow up thinking someday I'm going to fall in love and I'm gonna choose who I get to marry. They basically just realize my parents are going to pick a wife for me, and my parents are going to pick a husband for me, and I don't have any choice about it because I have to think about my family and not just about myself. Now that's kind of the other extreme, but it just shows you how different our culture is from other cultures, that we never think about what other people want. We always think about, first and foremost, ourselves.
And they actually value that. We did a survey in India and asked college students, you know, if you could choose your own spouse, would you like to? And most of them said, no, we would want our parents to choose.
Okay. And you know what?
So we have a negative perspective of that,
Yeah.
but actually, that's for them a strength.
That's what they want.
Of their culture.
And their divorce rate is a lot lower than our divorce rate. You know, so here we are insisting that we know what's best for ourselves and we're going to choose for ourselves, and then we make mistakes. You know, whereas the good thing about Indian culture is parents who are pretty smart and have a lot of experience, they really find a suitable spouse. You know, now I'm trying to convince my own kids that this is the way it should be. It's not working so far. You know? But, no, seriously, because I have a 19-year-old daughter, and I'm like, you know, in our organization in YWAM, I've met all these other parents, and I'm like, man, I could see hooking up my son with your daughter, and my kids were like, Dad, you didn't say that, or you didn't do that, so I can't do that. Okay.
There's a good book that talks about this, and it's John Bellevue. It's called The Fate of Satan.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Fate of
yeah.
Satan. It talks about having your own ideas and then wanting to just run on.
Taking offense at people, and yeah, I've seen that one. Okay, next point on individualism here. The idea that issues of right and wrong, rights, meaning like, you know, I have a right to do this, or I have a right to be this, and responsibilities originate in individuals, and that the community or group has no value or importance apart from guaranteeing what is best for individuals. Okay? So this is good in the sense that we as American culture, we really value right and wrong on the basis of what is best for individuals. And so our culture is all about guaranteeing freedom of speech, guaranteeing freedom of movement, guaranteeing freedom of assembly, guaranteeing all of these personal freedoms, really elevating the individual as the measure of what's right and wrong, and the measure of what becomes our responsibilities. So I've been in other countries, for example, North Korea is a communist country. It's just it's almost like a big cult. I mean, the whole country is just a cult nation, and they have this leader who basically has replaced God. And it's interesting because these people studied, the leader, Kim Jong-il, they studied Christianity, and they basically set up this model of the government where you have Kim Il-sung as the father, Kim Jong-il is the son, and then they have this thing called Juche, which is like their political philosophy that takes the role of the Holy Spirit. And so this nation has obliterated Christianity. They've spread all kinds of lies that Christian missionaries used to come in and inject children with all kinds of deadly viruses and so on. So they basically created this image that Christianity is this evil force in the world. And now they've created a whole state system where the government is the religion, the government is God, and these people live under the absolute control of the state. Okay? So what happens is, when I was there in 1997, they were in the middle of a famine. And